we come in, do that, and churches just get really, the people are like, man, this has been so good. And we have had the privilege of going back to some churches year after year because we'll do different seminars.
Right.
And we see some of the people, and it's like, man, since you were here last year, I've been doing that. Like, especially with the evangelism one, get people like, I went to a church, and it was 2 years later that I came to do another. So I did an evangelism training, and then I came out to do an apologetics.
Right.
And they were like, oh, we started an evangelism team from the last time you were here. This is a church of maybe 75 people.
Yeah.
40 people will go out weekly to evangelize.
Wow.
Begin while there's still ink left in my pen. I'm set to contend for truth. You can bet will offend. Deception within the church, man, who's letting them in. We talked about this years ago. Let's address it again. Yeah, and I ain't really trying to start beef, but some who claim to be part of the sheep got some sharp teeth. And cats get mean when you criticize them. But Jesus told us Matthew 7:16, we can recognize them.
Hello and welcome to the TC Cook Show on the Clearly Speaking Network. We are here live at the Fight Laugh Feast event, and we are setting with Mr. Andrew Rappaport from Striving for Eternity. He's an author, he's a teacher, an evangelist, all kinds of things that we'll dive into today. But Andrew, we're excited to have you on. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey everyone, today I want to talk to you about a company that has been a staple in the Midwest for nearly 2 decades, Raber Portable Storage. If you're in need of quality storage solutions, look no further. Whether it's a barn, shed, or garage, Raber has the largest selection of handcrafted storage structures in all of Indiana. Each building is made with care by experienced craftsmen, ensuring you get a product that not only looks great, but is built to last. And guess what? They stand by their workmanship with a fantastic 5-year warranty. What sets Raber apart? It's their commitment to customer satisfaction. From the moment you step into one of their many locations, their friendly team is ready to help solve your storage issues. Plus, they deliver up to 250 miles from their main office in Montgomery, Indiana. So if you live in Ohio, Kentucky, or Illinois, you need to give them a call. Now, let me tell you about the heart behind Raber Storage. It all started back in 2000 when they began building sheds full time. The founder grew up helping his father construct barns with just gas-powered skill saw and a lot of determination. Today, Raber has grown into a full-fledged operation with dedicated staff, but that personal touch still remains. They treat every customer like family. So if you're ready to find perfect storage solution, visit Raber Portable Storage. They have Indiana locations in Bloomington, Seymour, Vincent, Spencer, Corydon, West Lafayette, Sellersburg, and Kokomo, and even Tilton, Illinois. So you'll never have to go too far for quality storage. And hey, we got a deal for you today. If you mention you heard it from the podcast, Rabers will give you $150 off your barn purchase. That's right. You save $150 off your purchase by just mentioning you heard it here on the podcast. So check out their website at raberportablestorage.com. That's raberportablestorage.com to learn more and find your nearest location. Trust me, when you choose Raber, you're not just buying a shed, you're investing in quality craftsmanship and service you can rely on. This show is brought to you by Zach's Creamery in Montgomery or Jasper, Indiana. Zach's Creamery was founded with creating a pleasant and memorable experience in mind. They strive to serve the most exceptional homemade ice creams and signature coffees in an exuberant atmosphere. Zach's has something for everyone, as he features several items for those with special dietary needs such as vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, and no sugar-added, keto, diabetic friendly. Visit them today in Montgomery or Jasper, Indiana. You can dine in or drive through, but whichever way you choose, do not forget you can order online and have it waiting for you when you get there. Order online at zaxcreamery.com. That's Zach's Creamery, Z-A-X Creamery.com, and stop in at Montgomery or Jasper, Indiana.
So even after hanging out with me all last night, you still wanted me on.
That's right.
I thought you were a smart dude, and you didn't learn.
Right. You're questioning my integrity now. So, we did. We got in yesterday. We've been hanging out all night last night. We've had a good time, and so no, actually, I'm honored actually to have you, and I'm being serious, to have you on the podcast. You've done a lot. Even taking a phone call from me a couple of years ago, didn't even know who I was, and you said, sure, you can give me a call, and for whatever reason thought it was okay to give me your phone number, and you did that, and just to help me out with some questions that I had. And so I really appreciate that. I really appreciate just your evangelistic bent. Even this morning at breakfast, he's handing out gospel tracts of $1 million, right? And he's handing them out to kids, and everywhere he goes, his goal, which is our goal as Christians, but is to share the gospel, is to spread the gospel of Christ. So, Andrew, I really do appreciate it, and tell people maybe in my audience who might not know who you are, tell them a little bit about Striving for Eternity and even the podcasting and stuff that you do.
Sure. Yeah. And first off, you embarrassed me about this story there. So now I gotta give you some insight for all your audience. But I called my wife and I said, I feel so bad. This guy comes up to me and he's like, I don't know if you remember me. You let me call you and talk to you. And I'm telling him, like, I just feel so bad because I don't remember. Yeah. It's like, you're like, oh yeah, you were taking a walk and you were talking to me. And I'm like, so I'm taking a walk with her. And so I'm like, yeah, and she just looks at me, she tells me over the phone, because she's over with my son right now. And she's like, well, you just do that so often. Right. To you, it's strangers call you and you help them and you just go on with life. And you don't think anything of it. But they were like, hey, I just got to call this guy. And his answer to that, whenever I say, he said, no, I don't remember. He's like, but did I help you? Did it help? Did it help at all? Did it help you? Yeah, it did. It did. Yeah. So Striving for Eternity is a discipling ministry. So unlike a lot of parachurch ministries that are singly focused, right? Okay, I was a pastor for many years, and because of that, I know what it's like as a pastor, where you get someone they get all excited about whatever parachurch ministry. Right. In my case, we had some people that got very into Way of the Master. I was one of them. I mean, I was a speaker for Living Waters. Okay. Ray Comfort. Ray Comfort on the East Coast. So when they would have an East Coast thing where they didn't want to fly someone out, they'd send me. Okay. Because I was on the East Coast. So, the thing though is that, I noticed we had a guy in our church that got into prison ministry. Mm-hmm. And felt everyone in the church should be doing that. Right. We had some people that were like, why is everyone not doing the outreach and evangelism we're doing? Some people that were into Answers in Genesis. And I started to realize as a pastor that most pastors are not really into parachurch ministries because everyone in the church wants the whole church to do whatever they're into. Instead of like the whole church being all of these things. And I had realized that really there's a lack of discipleship in churches. And that's what we wanted to try to do. One of the things and we do it in a lot of different ways. You mentioned the podcasting is one. Yeah. We disciple through podcasting. And you go, well, how can you, that's like saying you're discipling through the pulpit. Yes, but that's not what we mean by it. Right. So, because I do teach through podcasting. Yeah. But we actually have the Christian podcast community, which is how we disciple podcasters. Right. So we work directly with the podcasters who are teaching others. Yeah. So that's our discipleship, is to work with the podcasters that are impacting other people that we're not reaching. Wow. Right. So and have quite a few people in that network that you guys are doing. Yeah. It's kind of a large network instead of a network, only because and so the distinction that we make is, you think of a network as a publisher. They can control the rights. Okay. You're associated with everything. Gotcha. So if you have a network, if you don't like someone that's in the network, well, you're associated with them. Right. We see ourselves more as a platform. Like a radio station. You're not associated with anyone else that's on there. Right. You're just on there. We're just making the means. You don't have to host with us. Right. You could be part of another network and still be part of our community. Right. And you're not associating with anyone else that's in there. Gotcha. So that's how we try to make. What we're trying to do with that is we're trying to build a community of people that are willing to support one another, help one another, promote one another. And from a Striving for Eternity standpoint, we're looking to help them improve both their quality and their content. So produce better quality, what people are hearing, but then the content as I listen to every podcast, and we have over 50 podcasts. Okay,
you wouldn't get anything else done. Yeah.
Well, we produce between 40 to 50 hours of content.
Wow.
And I know it because when I'm traveling and I miss a week, I got to make all that up. So we have some daily podcasts. We podcast for women, podcast for homeschooling.
Right.
No matter what someone wants, they'll find it.
Right.
So that's Christian Podcast Community. But a big thing that we do, we started with a free academy. People can go online. We have a teaching how to interpret the Bible, systematic theology, how to disciple, introduction to world religions, and we're teaching that way. So that's a way of just, it's not really the discipling we'd prefer because you don't get to see the person on the other side of the screen.
Right.
But it's an effective way to really to disciple people around the world.
Right.
We have been able to train pastors in China, in Brazil.
Yeah.
Guys that are doing ministry, but they didn't have training. And then there's people that so that we have that. But the big thing we try to do is to go in to our target audience is really the small churches that no one else will go to, none of the other parachurch ministries. Yeah. We're here at Fight, Laugh, Feast.
Right.
Now out here you got a bunch of people who are they're fired up to for the Lord in their own church, and they come to events like this and they're like, man, this is so great, but next week I go back to my church. I wish that I could have this experience every Sunday.
Yeah.
You see, and if there's a local church that can afford to put a conference on, they're a big church, and they can have that feeling for their church. No one's trying to do that for the small church.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we try to come in for a weekend, and we have what we call weekend seminars, how to interpret the Bible, evangelism, apologetics, social justice, family. So we have a whole lot of different topics we could do. And we'll go into the small churches to give them that conference feel, to get them that excitement,
right?
To spur them on, and then we leave them with some resources, of discipleship, so that they can, continue growing in their walk. And then we just try to support the pastor. Most of the churches we're going to go to, bivocational pastor, he doesn't have the time to put together seminars, to put together a weekend conference.
Yeah.
We have several speakers, so we have a breadth of topics that we can cover. So we come in, do that, and churches just get really, the people are like, man, this has been so good. And we have had the privilege of going back to some churches year after year because we'll do different seminars.
Right.
And we see some of the people, and it's like, man, since you were here last year, I've been doing that. Like, especially with the evangelism one, get people like, I went to a church. And it was 2 years later that I came to do another. So I did an evangelism training, and then I came out to do an apologetics.
Right.
And they were like, oh, we started an evangelism team from the last time you were here. This is a church of maybe 75 people.
Yeah.
40 people will go out weekly to evangelize.
Wow.
Because because they got fired up together.
Yeah.
It wasn't like coming to something like this where you're going back and you're telling everyone, oh, it was a really good conference.
And you're trying to get your church fired up on your own and all. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's a big part of what we try to do, because that's something that no one else is really doing. And it doesn't pay because most of the churches we go to can't afford to have us come out. So our monthly donors support us to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so we go where we're invited.
Yeah.
Like I get invited to places and people are like, oh, we can't afford. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, I went to the Philippines and they said, look, we can pay everything once you land here.
But
Can you get here?
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, we'll go.
Yeah.
And we don't have a speaking fee for any of our speakers. And so, it's like when they said, would you come to the Philippines? Yeah. Would you go to Guatemala? Yeah. Would you? Okay.
Wow.
We'll find a way. Lord makes the way for these things to get funded, so we can go and train up churches.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, because honestly, in America, the rural small churches are the lifeblood of American Christianity. There's so many of them, right, that have the 50, the 60, and it's like, and actually, if you add it up, we outnumber the mega churches, right? So, but yet nobody focuses on them.
What do you think is the average church size in America? You think about the mega churches, the churches with thousands, tens of thousands of people. What do you think the average size is?
60.
You're not too far off. 75 is the average. So think about that. Now you have one church with 10,000 people. how many small churches do you need?
You have to have some
way
10s
under.
and 20s to offset that, right?
Correct.
Yeah, to get that average.
And a lot of them.
Yeah.
So you end up with thousands and thousands of churches that are 20 to 50 people.
Right.
And you got a pastor he has a heart
Faithful
for the ministry.
pastor. Yeah.
He's got a heart for the people. He wants to shepherd, but he's got to pay the bills to feed his family. So he has to make sure he's doing some other job.
That's right.
To pay the bills. And he's trying to fit in his sermon prep.
Right.
And when you're doing that, guess what? You're not doing the counseling. You're not doing the visitation.
Yeah.
You're not doing.
Yeah.
They need that.
Right.
But they need to get a church rallied up to want to do that with them.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's where we try to come in.
Wow. So that I like the accessibility that you guys offer, right? Of that, and you know, there's some ministries, and it's not wrong, right? But some ministries that they do have to charge, right? And they will charge, and maybe they don't have a donor base or whatever that helps them do that. Maybe they do. And so it really makes it kind of inaccessible for those 50, 60, 70 people churches. And it really does. I mean, if they're paying for that, it's coming out of the pastor's bivocational salary, right? And that's how they're getting it done. And so I really do appreciate that heart of trying to equip, train, fire up, if you will, the small church and get that going. I really do appreciate that a lot. Now you've got some books, right? That you've authored. Talk about a couple of your books that you've authored. I saw you got some here this week, actually.
Yeah. So my first book was called "What Do They Believe?"
Yep.
And so what that is a systematic theology of the major Western religions. So we cover Judaism, which is my background, Catholicism, Islam, Mormonism, or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's a mouthful, but that's what they want nowadays.
Yeah. They don't want to be called Mormons.
Jehovah's Witnesses, and then Christianity. And what's unique about the book is I'm not trying to refute them, but I'm trying to provide for Christians from their sources what they actually believe, so that you don't misrepresent them. So what you end up you could do is you could say, well, do you believe this? Do you believe this? I mean, I've spoken to so many Muslims that expect me to misrepresent what they believe, and when they find out I don't, they start listening more. And I think about a couple in New York City. I was doing we're doing an outreach, and I had a family of Muslims, and this guy is a professor at a university, and he's like, "Oh, I understand Christianity, but he's defining the Trinity as three gods."
Right.
And I said, "You're doing that because that's what your Quran teaches, but that's not the Trinity." He goes, "Oh, yes, it is." And so I got 25 evangelists out there. I'm just grabbing one after another to find the Trinity, to find the Trinity, to find the Trinity. And they're all saying one God, three persons.
Right.
And this guy eventually, after like 7, okay, I get the point. So at the end of that conversation, I could sit there and say, let me ask you a question. Did I misrepresent anything that you believe?
Yeah.
And he said, no, you really have a good handle on what Islam teaches.
Wow.
I said, okay. But I'm telling you, and you saw this with others, that you're misrepresenting Christianity. You don't understand what it is. You need to get a Bible and see what the Bible actually says about Christianity. Not what your Quran says about Christianity.
You expect me not to misrepresent you. Well, then I expect you not to misrepresent me. Yeah,
and that was the goal of the book. The book actually, so it came about. In 2001, 9/11 occurred. Some of the audience goes, "What's that? I've only heard about that." Yeah, okay. So some of us are old enough to live there. But Islam, people wanted to understand Islam.
Wow.
And so my pastor asked me whether I would, do a couple weeks Sunday school lesson on what Islam actually teaches. So I got a Quran, read it, and systematized it. And it grew from there because people got an interest. So we went through all the religions, and I had a lot of the work I had already done. So what it is it's trying to give people a handle. Now, what I didn't expect is that people use that book as an evangelism tool. That's
what I was actually going to say. Yeah. So you didn't have that in mind at all.
I did not. No.
Wow.
I mean, we added the chapter on Christianity because, and we got a guy that's just started coming to the church. I mean, when I say it, I know I think he thinks he's a Christian, but because he grew up in a Catholic church.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't, he comes to Bible study and he's got to look in the table of contents to find his way around, which I love. I love seeing that. But he wanted to learn something about, got hold of my book, and he's like, so here's a guy who I don't think is saved, But he says, in reading your book, I noticed that every one of these religions are based on what people do to try to get right with God, and Christianity is different than all those. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And so that's was going to be it. But some people were using it as an evangelism tool. I wrote an epilogue and put out a new edition. That I put the uniqueness of Christianity. What makes Christianity unique from all these other world religions? And then I put a gospel presentation in it. So I figure the title of that epilogue might get people to go, uniqueness, Christianity, all religions are the same. I'll go read this and see what sets it apart that no other religion can do.
Yeah.
And so that was the first book. And what I do is I systematize those religions by their view of what's their authority, their view of God, their view of Christ, specifically Trinity, their view of man's sinfulness, salvation, and end times. My second book is What Do We Believe, which was a good follow-up. Right now it goes in deeper to, as Christians, what is it we hold to? What is it? Not everyone's going to agree within Christianity, but on a whole, here's something that we can say: this is what Christianity believes.
Right.
There may be things that people differ on. You're always going to get that.
Right.
But hence my chapter on, some people get upset because the chapter on end times, almost every Christian can agree to, because it doesn't mention any, whether there's a millennium, whether there's not.
Jesus is coming back.
Yeah,
done.
Jesus is coming back. We all agree.
Short chapter, done.
I always joke with people, you've heard of pan-millennial, right?
Right, yeah.
I'm pro-millennial.
Yeah.
If there's a millennium, I'm all for it.
I identify as a pro-millennial.
Well, this is coming from a guy who people say, are you a Calvinist? Are you a this? Are you a that? And I say, well, I'm Rapportian. My last name is Rappaport.
Right.
You got to ask me what I believe.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So, where do you keep all your stuff at? Is it on Striving for Eternity? Is that where people find almost everything?
Yeah, everything can be found at strivingforeternity.org.
Okay.
And if people are driving and that's like, hey, dude, that is way too much to try to remember, I'll give the shortcut is just sfe.bible.
Oh,
so that gets you to the same place. But,
nice.
But it'll take you right to strivingforeternity.org.
Yeah. And so if you guys want to know more about him, his ministry books, obviously go check that out. It's even if you're a podcaster and you want to just get some help on how to I think you have a video out even, right? Like a podcasting 101 type thing.
Yeah, we have a podcast for podcasters called So You Want to Be a Podcaster.
There you go. Yeah.
Because you think you want to be a podcaster till like episode 8 when you're like, this is a lot of work.
It is. Yeah.
People don't realize how much work goes into podcasting.
That's right. So. And actually it's a lot of work. That's why it's been great coming to the conference, because I don't really have to like call and find guests and do it. I just say, hey, would you like to jump on? And they just jump on, right? Yeah. Well,
I
need a producer. That's what I need.
It's really neat here because they got Media Row here with all the podcasters. As you first come in these doors, and it's like, here's all the podcasters all lined up. And
they're all just chomping at the bit.
Yeah, they're all like, okay, hey, let me grab you.
Random audience members. Hey, come on. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I walked in yesterday, first thing before, a lot of people were here.
Yeah.
I was already grabbed. Hey, we want to get on a podcast.
Yeah. It's honestly, guys, and I know we're talking to Andrew here, but if you haven't been to a Fight Laugh Feast conference, I really do recommend it. As far as just the booths and the talks and the people who are giving talks and the people who are here, the connections you can make inside of just people all over the country are great. Just even with Andrew, me and him talked on the phone. He doesn't remember, but we talked on the phone. But beginning to see.
You're not gonna let that go. Just keep rubbing that in.
It was so unmemorable, but
see, that's the thing that makes me feel so bad. My wife is one. She at least made me feel a little better. She's like, you just do this all the time.
Yeah, no. I mean, and it's always like a gamble when you ask somebody, hey, we talked on the phone. You remember that? It's always a gamble.
So, you know Jeffrey Rice, right?
Yes.
So Jeffrey Rice does. The rebinding of Bibles and whatnot, and great work that he does, handcrafted, and it's an art form what he does with.
It really is,
But he came up to me at a conference, and he asked if I remembered him. We went to this event. It was an outreach for the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
And he was going through something,
right?
And he just we met, we talked. And he said I sat down with him for like an hour or so, just talking to him, counseling him,
right,
and helping him with ministry things that he was going through. And I'm like, I feel so bad because I don't remember.
Yeah. And then your question was, did it help?
That's why I keep asking that question.
Was it fruitful?
The only thing I know is no one comes back. No.
And that's because he had started a conference, right? He invited you back, so obviously it didn't offend him that bad. Right?
No, it did. No, I consider him a dear friend now, but like, just look, one of the things is I think that there's a branch within Christianity. I know this is off topic, but
yeah, it's fine.
There becomes this platform building versus ministry.
Yeah.
I'm a minister.
Right.
I'm not looking to build a platform. If I was looking to build a platform, the last thing I would do is go to small churches. Okay. But the thing is that you see, like when we used to have conferences, the one thing is we had no green room.
Yeah.
If we ran into a speaker that has to have a green room, sorry, you're not going to fit in well with us, because we don't have a green room. We actually expect you to interact with
engage.
The people. And there's people who start to think it get to their head and they think like they're somehow above, people. And it's like, man, there's nothing special about me, and I might be busy, but as a minister, this is what we do.
Right.
If I'm called to shepherd, a shepherd who God brings to me, and that if someone says, "Hey, I need help," okay.
Well, and here recently, and I know, and we kind of talked just a smidgen last night about it, but there does seem to be a even for a while there, like Reformed theology, Reformed people were getting kind of cut from the main circuit, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. So then they created their own circuits, right? And then now those have grown so large that there's a speaker circuit inside of the Reformed theology movement, and sometimes people fall. Right, so sin, temptations, snares are there, and I'm not saying it's because they want a green room or not, but I am saying that the mentality of that, right, and I was joking last night because I was watching you walk around and you're talking to people last night at the after party, and you're handing out cards, you're handing out your big podcast card or your small personal card, you're handing out all these things, and I just kept saying he look at him, he's a man of the people, right? Andrew's a man of the people. He's going out, he's talking, he's getting to know everybody. And in all honesty, there's a sector of Reformed camp, if you will, that they don't want to be bothered with that. They might stand at the back of the door, shake your hand, but they want you to keep moving on, right? And then they go home or they fly away or whatever it is. And that's something that I've noticed here, at least, like even with Gabe and the guys at Fight Laugh Feast, like they actually set up things on purpose to get in the middle of people. They want to get to know you. They want to see you. They want to talk to you. They want to be accessible, right, to people. And that's what, as Christians, we should be, right? It's hard for iron to sharpen iron whenever the iron runs away and stashes himself in the other green room, right? And I'm not saying it's bad to have a hospitality room and get snacks. I'm not saying any of that, but yeah, and we've got to watch it. We've got to be careful.
What you're addressing is, it's not the green room isn't the issue. I agree. Mm-hmm. It's the idea of, and this can happen whether it's in a big conference seating or within a local church, is this idea of, you know what, as a pastor, and I have issues with the way we hire pastors, okay?
I'm with you.
I don't think it's biblical.
Right.
You hire some guy from outside that you don't know, and what do you do? It's a popularity contest. I like his preaching.
Yeah.
I like the way he talks. You like something about him. And the reality, okay, you're sitting there not looking at it the way the scripture has, which is all based on character. You don't know a man's character in a week or 2 weeks.
Right.
You should be in every church that I had been pastor of.
A guy gets up, does one sermon, right? And then you hire him based off of that one sermon.
One sermon or a couple sermons you heard.
And how his wife and his children look and, all that stuff.
How well they fake it for a week, Right? They know that they got to be, they're being watched. It's like, but you're not going to know his character.
Right.
The churches where I pastored, we never had a Q&A for me. You know why? I was in the church.
Yeah.
They knew who I was. Yeah. And they called me to be the preaching pastor. So
there was a podcast, and so this is going to bring credit back to you for not knowing who I was, right? I did a long
third reference, folks. Third reference.
I was going to say anything. You brought it up.
Can someone get the knife out of it? And folks, you go back and re-listen. See who brought it up first. I'm just saying.
I'm helping you on this one. Because I did a long form podcast here recently, and I'm thinking it's like a week, and I don't remember who said this. So, but
it was me.
Yeah. We were going on and talking about schooling, and we send pastors off to seminary, and we do, and they come out with all this debt, and then they typically will take over a 50, 100 church, and they can't afford to be the pastor because they got all this debt that they've got to pay off. And yet, when we could be inside of our own congregations raising up elders, right? Because you would actually desire that all the men in your church were elder qualified, right? That should be the desire
Absolutely.
of every church. And so raising up those, and then having even an elder training program, right, to build up pastors, right, and to grow that. And yet we think, well, as long as they have a seminary degree, they come in, they preach one time, and their family looks good, then we're going to hire them, and then they're going to have to be paying off $100,000 worth of debt over the next 100 years, right, to actually even get out of this hole that they've dug. And yet they come out not knowing even really how to pastor, but they can handle the text usually, depending on where they go, right? Typically they might be, but they don't know how to counsel. They don't know the practicality of what do I do when I have two elders arguing on a situation, right? But yet if they were trained up they would get to see the behind the scenes bickering and arguing, and the joys and the hardships and all of that, because they've been raised up inside the church to do that, right? It was our model needs to switch.
Yeah,
it needs to switch,
and it causes. Here's some of the problems people don't think about that it causes. So you got some guy that he's there for a job.
Yeah.
Now he may care about the people and shepherd the people, but it's his job,
right?
So he's got to be careful because he says the wrong thing, upsets the wrong power person in the church.
Right.
He's out the door. Or he's dealing with a split. So because of that, what you end up having is some guys that they're just they don't want to deal with issues. They don't want to address things. So you end up having, and there was a book called Superman Syndrome, and it was talking about pastors saying, because he's like, hey, we're not Superman.
That's right.
We're not called. Pastors are afraid for people in the church to know that they're a sinner, because if people realize they're a sinner, they may get voted out. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of pastors that keep a distance to the congregation. Yeah. Same thing with ministries. These big ministries, as you were saying, you have cancel culture exists in Christianity.
Yeah, it does.
And so what you see is someone says the wrong thing, and Alistair Begg says something, and to the state, the one thing that I haven't heard anyone address with the whole Alistair Begg thing is Alistair Begg made a comment about grandmother going to her to a same-sex wedding.
Yeah, I remember that.
But when 9 months later, when it finally came out and became a big thing, he tried to clarify. And one thing he said in his clarification that I haven't heard anyone pick up, he said, I would not give this counsel to anyone else. And I went, okay. There's something for the life of me, I cannot figure out what would be a justifiable
why you would do that. Yeah,
but he's basically
something
saying
we don't know, and we don't have to know.
We don't have
right?
to. He's the pastor,
right? And
he knows this grandmother, and he gave her advice,
right,
for a situation different than he would give to anyone else,
right?
And we jump on him because, and now he's retired now. I think because of all this that happened.
Really,
yeah.
I didn't know that part. Okay, but you think it's because of the dust
sure
stuff?
It is. Yeah, and so
wow, I did not know that.
You think about this and go, people are like, oh, I can't trust him anymore. And the reality is, we don't give the grace to go, why would he say that?
Right.
And as a pastor, there's things he's not going to share publicly about people in the
as
church.
He should not, right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
But you see, so many people are worried that could happen to me.
Right.
You say one wrong thing.
Right.
And everyone could cancel you.
Yeah.
So because of that, whether it's in big ministries, small ministries that want to be big,
right,
pastor, it's in a church,
right,
whatever, you have people that are so afraid if they do one misstep,
right,
they're going to be canceled.
Yeah.
So people are not willing to put their neck out and really shepherd and minister because their head might get chopped off.
Yeah.
It's the whack-a-mole. You're sticking your head up, and someone's going to smash it down.
Yeah,
and
but this is like this in almost every aspect of life, right? You have politicians, right, who don't want to say those things either, because then they won't get reelected, right?
Kamala Harris has been really clear. I mean, she is in favor of every Trump policy that she voted against.
That's right. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about, right? And when you have the mentality of a people pleaser, if you will, right? And whether that's because I want to be elected, or whether that's because I don't want to lose my job, or whether that's because I'm afraid that as a pastor that they'll turn on me, right, or whatever. And so I'm just going to keep quiet. And another aspect of that though is in ministry, and pastors have been hurt by congregants, right, who have said, I'm with you through the thick and thin, and next thing you know, they just said, we're out, and they leave, and they take 5 other families with them. And so I see pastors' wives who throw up walls because they're like, I'm tired of being hurt by friends, right? People who call me, but because we're in this pastor position, then our friendship means nothing, right? At a certain point. And so then they're afraid to put themselves out because of that, right? So then they kind of typically then start to hang out with other pastors, right? And because at least they have some commonality. They've been hurt, I've been hurt, but yet their congregants are still there, right? And they're still called to be a shepherd to their people. And so it's not an easy thing to be in the public. It's just not. And but we are called to be in the public. We are called to go and to shepherd and to be that. So yeah.
So I did on my Andrew Rappaport's Rap Report podcast. So I just searched for Rap with 2 P's, Rap Report. Some time ago, do a search there for what is a pastor. And because I went into a 10 episode series explaining what a pastor is, what qualifies him, what his day is like, and I finalized it with which I really felt was good, was how to encourage your pastor. And I put out online and said, give me some ideas of how you can encourage your pastor.
Right.
And I used AI to play voices for each of the people. Yeah. And so you could hear, so it wasn't me reading what they said.
Right. Smart.
And the thing is, people don't realize what pastors go through. People sitting in a pew and they're criticizing their pastor, and they think they're the only one criticizing their pastor. I got news for you. Your pastor is being criticized by almost everybody in the church. Right. You're not the only one.
Right.
You're not the only one that thinks he's doing something wrong.
Right.
You're not the only one that thinks he's got to know that, and I'm not joking with this, that, his tie clashes with his shirt. Right. Okay, there's a reason I wear solid colors now.
There you go.
Okay. And it's like, there's people, and some people mean well.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is the pastor hears that over and over, and it beats people down.
Yeah, it does.
They don't have equal encouragement to that.
Right.
And so a lot of people think like, oh, a pastor just Saturday night kind of puts together a message. Yet not if he's good. For me, a typical message is about 30 hours of work, getting into the Greek and the Hebrew, digging into it, especially if I'm going to have to jump from text to text to text, because now I got to not only exegete one passage, I might have to do 12 of them.
Right.
Now it's even worse. So it's like, okay, that's got to plan way ahead. Mm-hmm. So the reality is that people don't think about what a pastor's life is like, what his daily routine is to have to go through. There are lazy men. There's 2 types of pastors, the lazy and the shepherds. Okay, there's guys who get into ministry because they can just sit and play golf all day and whatever. And then there's those who are true shepherds. Those true shepherds are the ones you need to encourage, you need to support. They need to know that you got their back. Because you said something that it struck with me, because the church that I'm at right now, my pastor, he had a guy that came in. He was a pastor of a different church, in New Jersey. He comes to Pennsylvania. He's like, "Oh, I'm loyal. I'll be loyal to you. I got your back." Type of, almost exactly verbatim what you had said. But he says to him, "Pastor, I'll be loyal to you." And then he is cutting out from underneath the pastor. He's going to the deacons and undermining this guy and trying to get the deacons to replace the pastor with him.
Oh my.
Right? And when that didn't go his way, he ends up leaving and taking a bunch of people with him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm loyal. I got your back.
Right.
And so, I never told my pastor I'll be loyal. I never said that to him.
Right.
But he knows it. He knows it because, when I'm going to go somewhere, he gets a call from me. Hey, I'm going to be in this state. This is what I'm doing. I'm speaking at this event. I'm speaking at this event. Mm-hmm. When I get a guy who is brand new to the church, he contacts me, has some issues. He wants some counseling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do that as we talked about, right? I do that all over the country.
Right.
But I'm doing it in the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
I call him up and I said, hey, Pastor, I just want you to know that so-and-so asked if I can meet with him. I'm going to get together with him tomorrow night.
Right.
To talk with him. Are you okay with it?
Yeah.
He's like, you don't need my permission. No, I do. I need to make sure you know what I'm doing inside the church.
Right.
Any activity, and he's heard this from me enough times and seen me do it. I said, there's nothing I will do in the church that should catch you by surprise. If I'm not in church, you know why.
Right.
If I'm talking with someone, you know why.
Right.
There's nothing that I do in church that will catch you by surprise.
Yeah.
And he's seen that over years and knows that, I have his back because of what I not by what I say, but what I do.
Yeah. But you know this just as well as I do. If you didn't do that, right? How the enemy can use that to twist things and to say, well, oh, look at Andrew, like he's trying to counsel these people because he wants them to be on his side, or they're going to love him more than me, or and how the trick, the mind games, and all that stuff starts to play.
So I was at a conference with a pastor's
conference. This is like a dark side that I think most people don't get that's happening, right?
Yeah. This was totally not on topic. You wanted to talk evangelism.
Yeah. I told you we don't know where it's going to go. So now, yeah.
I remember sitting with two guys at this pastor conference.
Right.
They just retired. They're going to move to a new area to go to a church because, and rightfully so, because if they stay at their church, the guy who comes in, everyone's going to their old pastor. He's got the years, so it's unfair to the new guy.
Right.
Unless he was there and they in the church and raised, like if it was a biblical model that we talked about earlier, right?
Right.
But so they're going and they're talking because the two of them are going into churches trying to find a new church, and they're having difficulty. And the reason they're having difficulty is they come in saying, well, I used to pastor at this church. And I sat there and I said, guys, listen, if someone came into your church when you were the pastor and they were like, hey, I used to pastor this church, what are you thinking? They're like, one guy goes, well, I'm thinking they're probably looking to, pastor this church. Yep. And I said, so what do you think the guys are thinking when you're going in? And they're like, oh, that's why we're having trouble. I said, just go there and be a church member.
Yeah,
just be the church member. And this is what I've told my pastor. I want to be for you the church member that I always wanted.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny. We talked about that episode I did on how to encourage a pastor.
Yeah.
Everyone. What I did was before I read who sent it in, I read what they said because I put them all into this into a one big document.
Right.
And then I looked up who was saying each of them. Interesting thing, do you know that every single pastor, I could tell who was a pastor, who wasn't, because one of the things almost all the pastors said was, how can you encourage your pastor? Be there on Sunday.
Just show up.
Show up.
Just show up.
I mean, that was like almost all of them said, just show up. The other thing that almost all said was, don't just say, hey, thanks for the message, or it was a good message. Be specific.
Be specific. What part?
What helped you?
Right.
What
I actually,
was it?
After I get done teaching and somebody says that, I'm always like, so which part did you like? And sometimes they're like, I'm like, yeah, you really did.
You're just patting me on the back.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks, but it really wasn't heartfelt.
Right.
It's just words.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm just like, I just let it go. But it reminds me of Hebrews 13:7, right? Remember your leaders, those who speak to you the word of God, and so that's how it starts. But then you go down to verse 17, right? Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls, as those who will have to give an account. Let them do this with joy and not with groaning, for that would be of no advantage to you, right? And it's saying, hey, treat your pastor as you would want to be treated, right? That's how you can encourage them, one, right? And then two, be the church member that they would love to tell others about, right? Like, man, I've got a congregation that really does this. Because it is a joy for them to lead you, right? And that's something that I don't, we want all these qualifications for the elders, as we should, and because the Bible has them, and for deacons, but we forget to talk about the qualification of the church member, right, and the church goer, and we forget to say, hey, here's things that are expected of you, right? And one of the things in Hebrews is so that they can do it with joy, right? Obey them, follow them, encourage them, walk with them, so that they can do their job with joy. And we don't take on, as church members, I don't think a lot of us take on that response, because we're a consumeristic society, and so we sit there to consume. And if your tie is off-putting because it doesn't match your shirt, well, that's unappeasing, and I can't consume your message because all I'm thinking about is your shirt and tie, right? Like that's kind of the things that we don't talk about, I think. But
people don't think about that. But yeah, I actually had 3 women that. So what?
It was that bad. What did you wear?
Yeah, like
a Hawaiian shirt. No,
I'm not coordinated well with stuff like that. So I had I guess a striped shirt with a paisley tie, and it wasn't. So I would just solid colors.
Yeah, right.
But look, you bring up a really good point out of Hebrews, because if the pastor has the freedom, if the pastor really knows that the people are not going to turn on him at the slightest thing, he has the freedom to say the hard things.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
But if he doesn't have that, if he's worried that there's going to be a church split, he's not going to say the hard things. He's got to make a choice
now, right?
And what's going to happen? Courage
or what? Like he's got to,
So when there's a church discipline issue, what's he going to do? Let's just leave it alone, bury it under the rug, hope it goes away, and it never does. So it grows. And when it gets bigger, everyone wants to blame the pastor. You know why? You know why that became a big issue? Because a pastor didn't feel the freedom to deal with the hard issue when it was small.
Right.
Because you didn't have his back.
Right.
He wouldn't feel that the church would accept him, and so he hoped it would go away.
Right.
And look, I'll encourage you as a listener, just go to your pastor. Hey, let's go out for a cup of coffee, and ask your pastor, hey, be honest with me, is this how you feel? You'd be surprised. A lot of pastors may feel, some may not even want to open up and share it because they're nervous with it. But if you get a guy that opens up to you, you're going to realize, a lot of pastors, and I know this because I travel all over the world speaking.
Right.
And it's something you had said, the pastors gravitate toward other pastors. Well, when I come in as a guest speaker, I am counseling. I've counseled hundreds of pastors, because what happens is I come to the church and we'll go out for lunch, and it's just the pastor and I.
Right.
And then he starts saying, I'm dealing with this issue. I got this, the church is ready to split. I went into one church and I preached out of Romans 9, Romans 10. I didn't know, he wanted me to preach on God's sovereignty, human responsibility.
So you go to Romans 9, Romans 10, right?
And so I preach it, and we go to lunch, and the pastor says, oh, brother, I'm so glad you did that. He asked me to do it, but what I didn't know is, he's like, I think you just prevented a church split today. See, he had been struggling with that. Now all of a sudden he's unloading it on me and telling me this has been going on over this issue. The issue of Calvinism or Arminianism was splitting the church, and he's trying to bring everyone together around the Word of God.
Right.
And both sides are attacking him. Oh, you're just with them. You're with them. And so having this guest come in. Right. So I end up talking to all these pastors and hearing all the things that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And it's like, in 2020, something changed. The only thing I could say is, I think in 2020 we learned we can't trust our own government here in America.
Right.
But as Christians, we were known as people who submit to authority.
Yeah.
And now we can't.
Right.
Because the authority is lying to us, deceiving us, and coming after us. Well, I think a lot of Christians brought that into the church.
Yeah.
Between 2020 and 2022, I counseled way more pastors on church discipline and church split issues than probably all my ministry combined. Because so many pastors were struggling.
The question of leadership in our government came down to every form of leadership then, right? People just questioned so then they start nitpicking, well, if he says this, then he obviously believes that. so I'm out. And they don't even talk to him, right? They don't even go and say, hey, Pastor, you said this, and can you explain that a little more? Like, what were you mean? Like, they're just like, no, I'm out. Yeah, and actually, during that time, there were so many articles online that came out on when is the right time to leave my church. Do you remember this? Like, it was so many, because so many people were saying, I don't like my church anymore. I don't like this. I don't like that. And let's be real. There are times when you just need to move on. You need to leave, right? Absolutely.
But whether you wear a mask or not,
right,
is not an issue. I mean, like if the church is saying you must wear a mask,
correct,
or you can't wear a mask,
right.
But like the church I attend,
right,
I wasn't there at the time, but during those years, the pastor just said, "You want to wear a mask? Wear a mask.
Absolutely.
You don't want to wear a mask? Don't wear a mask."
Because you know what? The pastor doesn't have authority on telling you what to wear on your face.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, you want to wear a diaper on your face? Go for it, man. But
you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to sit here and judge the person wearing a mask. We're not going to sit here and judge the person not wearing a mask. We're going to be here in community together, loving each other. Yeah. But we're not going to judge that.
My pastor struggled because some people are like, well, you're not forcing everyone to wear a mask. You're in sin. You don't love your neighbor. Then he's got people going, you're not telling them to take their mask off. You're lying to them.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
And people are fighting over it. And he's like, I'm just trying to, like, I don't care what you do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The best stance on that one was to come out and say, hey, if you guys feel comfortable wearing that, and wear it. If you don't. But don't sit here and argue and fight over who's wearing it, who's not. Like, we're not going to do that.
The position I took when I was pastor in a church at that time, and the position we took was, if you see someone that's not wearing a mask, fine. You don't want to wear a mask, walk up, talk to them, no problem. You see someone wearing a mask, maybe and you're not wearing one, maybe just give them
the space,
feet,
right?
Some space. If you see, like we had one elder, one of the pastors, he just said if he sees someone wearing a mask, he'd pull out of his pocket, put a mask on. He'll talk to the person wearing the mask. Right. When he walks over to someone not wearing a mask, he'll take it off. Yeah. And that was his policy, and we were okay with it.
Right.
It wasn't a thing, and we had the people that were like, no, you putting that mask on, you're lying to people, you're spreading the lie. It's like, I'm being respectful to people.
Yeah.
Now, in my case, I just wasn't going to wear the mask. I have health reasons why I wasn't going to.
Right.
So, I mean, I wasn't wearing masks on planes, so
right.
if I'm not doing it there,
right. Yeah, we covered a lot here, and I hope that people can see just the shepherd's heart that you have, the just trying to handle the word. That's something we didn't get to. Handle the word correctly. That's something that every person, but I see that in you on a high level, saying you got to know the text, you got to know it, and so if we could say that to anybody, whatever your theological bent is, it better be to understand the text, right? And so let's agree to that. But if you guys want, I know we have listeners, because I see some of you out there, see the likes, I see the shares, who go to churches that wouldn't be able to maybe have a conference or have somebody come in and speak, and because they can't afford it, they can't do that. Go to Striving for Eternity or sfe.bible to check that. I'll put it in the show notes, and really consider having him and his team come out and to train and to teach, and to, whether it's apologetics, whether it's evangelist, like he'll take you out and in your town, you guys can knock on doors, you can go into the public square, whatever it is. But if you want that and you desire that, and you're a pastor, you're sitting there saying, man, I really want my congregation to understand this aspect, right? But I'm struggling to get that there. Do a weekend, right? Have them come in for a weekend. Have them come in on a Friday, Saturday, and to talk. They're more than willing to do that. Go and check out his books that he has and the resources online that he has. Check out his podcast. I've listened to. I've seen the lives. I've been on some of the lives. Right? Go check it out. Go listen to the topics that they have. But and we'll have all that stuff in the show notes coming up. But Andrew, I appreciate you coming on and talking and just being really diving into even the pastor part of it. I really appreciate that. So I really do thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to hang out with you this weekend so far. And we'll see, folks. If he doesn't survive this weekend, you know why. I told him he's sitting across from me face to face, and Nightmares go away. I hear it only takes about 3 to 4 months.
Right. Yeah. So if I don't survive, you're calling Andrew. That's what it is. And it's Andrew's fault. And but guys, no, honestly, like and share this podcast if it meant something to you. Help continue to get the word out on the TC Cook Show and the Clearly Speaking Network. And as always, guys, we love you. We appreciate it, and we'll see you again next time.